Happy Wednesday. We're so happy you're here. All right. Welcome, guys. We're so happy you're here tonight. We have a couple announcements for you. We wanted to just make sure you knew what is going on here with HSM. Impact applications open Tuesday, March 1st, and we have a wide variety of teams for people of different gifts and talents, from leading small groups to running tech. So check it out on our website, cpconline.org, and we'll have more info for you next week as well. If you were here last week, you may remember us talking about the Invited campaign, and you got those snazzy little stickers. Well, today, Carrie has something she'd like to share with you.
When I was in high school at CPC, our leaders challenged us to identify and then start praying for people in our lives that we thought were far from God or didn't have a faith. I called my list of people the impossible list because they were people that I thought would never follow God. It would be impossible for them to follow God. But what my leaders told me, and what I soon found out, was that our God is the God of the impossible. I had this list my senior year, and then I took it with me to college and continued to pray over these 5 people. Some of those people today are following Jesus, and it is so amazing to see what he has done in their lives over the last few years. Last week, you should have received a card from your small group leader and instructions inviting you to pray for 5 people in your life. The power of invitation is huge, and as CPC embarks on this Invited campaign, we want our students to be involved in it as well by praying for people and inviting them to church or into your small group, or for you to just identify a conversation that you could have with them and talk to them about your faith. We hope that you have gotten one of these cards and that you have picked 5 people to start praying for. If you didn't receive one of these cards, or one of the stickers that came with it, ask your small group leader tonight and they will give you one.
This might sound crazy, but summer camp registration launches on Saturday morning at 10 a.m. We have 2 exciting options for you guys as high schoolers. So first of all, we have the 612 experience, which is June 13th through 16th, here in Minneapolis. We'll be staying locally and doing a bunch of exciting projects to serve our neighbors. And as always, we have Summit, July 23rd to 29th, and this year we have a new location, a new awesome camp with some great activities. It's on a lake, so we'll be renting boats for tubing and water skiing. You can go cliff jumping, you can play volleyball, go on hikes, and maybe even try out some archery. So be there.
Hey everybody, welcome to House Groups. This is our second week in our Who is Jesus series, and this week we're talking about Jesus being living water. Now, this phrase living water comes from one of the stories in the Bible that talks about Jesus and his disciples. They're traveling along, and Jesus says that they have to go through the town of Samaria. And he has an encounter with a woman at the well, and actually, this is the longest recorded conversation between Jesus and another person in the entire Bible. So it's pretty clear that we can learn a lot about Jesus through his interaction here. Jesus and his disciples are traveling along, and the quickest route for them to get to where they're going is through a town called Samaria. But the thing is, Jewish people avoided going through Samaria whenever they could because Jewish people and Samaritans didn't get along. And actually, the Jews had a pretty negative view of Samaritans in general. And so a lot of times, Jewish people would actually add days to their travel and walk around Samaria just so that they didn't have to go through. But Jesus says, today we have to go through Samaria. And at first that would have been puzzling for his disciples, but as we see, he's going to have a conversation with a woman at this well that is extremely important. You'll read more about this in your small groups tonight, but this woman that Jesus meets at the well doesn't have a good reputation around town, and that's actually why she's at the well when she is in the middle of the day. And so essentially this passage is about Jesus going where he wasn't supposed to go to meet someone who didn't want to be seen. I wanted to point out 2 really important things that Jesus does in his interaction with this woman. The first one is Jesus points out the hurt in her life, the pain in her life. But the second thing that Jesus does is so important to go hand in hand with that, and he gives her hope. So Jesus doesn't just come and tell this woman why she's hurting, he also gives her hope, and he gives her a promise, and he calls himself living water and promises that if she drinks of the living water or if she believes in him, her life will never be the same. The other weekend I got the chance to babysit my little niece Blair.
Good job.
I love when I get to go babysit her because we get to run around and play games, and she loves reading books, or I guess she loves having me read books to her, and she likes to point at the pictures and say the words that she knows, but obviously she's really little, so she can't speak in full sentences or anything like that. So whenever she needs something, there's kind of a guessing game that goes along with it. And when I was babysitting her, she kind of ran into the kitchen and was fussing and started pointing at her high chair. And so it was at that moment that I said, "Oh, Blair, are you hungry? Do you want something to eat?" Now, when I asked her if she was hungry, I didn't solve the problem there. I didn't walk away from her at that point. No, I put her in her high chair and I made her some food and I fed her. And that's kind of what we're talking about here. If Jesus had just come to point out the problems and the flaws that this woman had and didn't give her hope or a solution, that would be a totally different story. But Jesus also offers this woman hope in a really powerful way. In his book, Vanishing Grace, Philip Yancey says the following: "God didn't go to all the trouble of sending his son merely to point an accusing finger, telling the world how bad it was. He came to help. He came to put the world right again." Jesus didn't come to the well just to tell this woman how broken her life was. He didn't come to the well just to remind her of the mistakes she had made. Jesus came to give her life and offer her something better and a solution to the hard things she was going through. This woman has her life completely changed. She goes away from this interaction with Jesus totally different. And it changes the way that she lives, and it changes the way that other people see her. She's running through the town shouting, "The Messiah is here. I've seen him and my life has changed." And even if people thought that it was crazy that this woman thought she saw the Messiah, they couldn't argue the fact that her life was changed. And in that book that I talked about, Vanishing Grace, Philip Yancey talks about a friend of his who's not a Christian saying the following: "One evening, Josh told us about his sister. She had been a drug addict, unable to hold a job or keep her marriage together. Then one day, she found Jesus," Josh said. "There's no other way to put it. She changed from night to day. Her ideas drive me crazy, but I can't deny the change in her life. She had tried every kind of rehab and recovery therapy, and nothing else worked." So this guy's talking about the fact that his sister's life completely changed, and he thought it was nuts, the things that she believed about Jesus, but he couldn't argue the fact that her life had been completely transformed when she met Jesus. Jesus offered this woman in Samaria living water, the thing that would change her entire life. And Jesus makes that same offer to us today. He sees us wherever we are, and he sees the pain and the hurt or any of the troubles that we go through, and he offers us himself. He offers a relationship with him, and it changes everything. So the only question that's left to ask is, will we trust him? Will we take him up on his promise?